Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Knee Deep in the Pod. I'm Dan.
And I'm Chris, and this podcast is basically a place for us to talk about games and reminisce about the good old days when we actually had time to play them. And on this episode, we're going to continue our discussion on are old games as good as we remember them being?
Absolutely, we've got plenty more to say on that, but just before we get into the weeds of that, Chris, I want to ask you, is there a game that's been on your mind this week?
Yeah, I've had a little bit of a think, and so there's a game called Silver, which is another blast from the past. It won't surprise you or our listeners. This is a game that's been on my mind on and off for years, actually. I don't know if you've experienced this or maybe our listeners, but it's a game I had a demo of as a kid, and I don't really know where all these demos came from in our house.
We just had them.
They just appeared. I suspect they came free. I mean, they came free with magazines and stuff, didn't they? So I wonder if my dad just, bought, some computer magazine or something from, like, the newsagents. Like, I think that was like a thing that my dad did. He'd, like, buy mags from the newsagents.
We used to get CDs in cereal boxes.
100%. I loved that. Did you? And like, tangent already, but I still remember, like, one or two times I got a CD in a cereal packet, but it wasn't round. It was like the shape of a card. It was like a rectangle. I'm serious. It was like not a normal CD.
Like a floppy
it was
disk.
But like, imagine like like the size of a playing card, but it had a hole in the middle to be mounted by a CD drive, and like, anyway, so Silver. However, this game came into our house, who knows? But I guess we installed it, and there's this sort of action RPG type game. So, run around, slash your sword at monsters, and that's kind of the thing. All I could tell you, like, all I could remember, if you were to ask me some weeks ago, was there's a bad guy. The main premise I remember is that they took all the women away. That's, like, the main thing the bad guy's done so far, like, kidnapped all the women. And it's your job to, like, save them, defeat the bad guy, whatever. And the other thing I remember is you would control, like, the types of attack your guy does by gestures of your mouse. Like, the way you, like, moved your mouse around would change how it, like, was it a lunge or a swipe? And that was, like, mind-blowing to me. And, like, yeah, I can't think of many other games that do that. I think it's not completely unique, but it certainly felt innovative at the time. And kind of unique, and it's still relatively unique in my experience. So anyway, that's a game I've been thinking about, and to round this story off, it's because I recently received the full version of this game and have started playing it in earnest. To, like, I'm now beyond where the demo dropped me, and tried to tempt me to buy the full version. So it's a bit clunky and a bit blocky, but it's cool. I'm enjoying it.
Am I right in thinking Black and White had a similar mechanic where you had to make certain gestures with your mouse to cast, I don't know, different god powers?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's like you would make shapes on the floor, I think, and then that would be like that would maybe like do a power. Oh, man, that's one. Yeah, that could be certainly its own, maybe not an episode, but certainly a long discussion, the Black and White thing, because I just thought that was such an excellent game. It's actually got quite a similar graphical style to Silver in some regards. But yeah, very challenging to play right now. It's not like, I think there's no, like, officially supported sort of platform to play it right now, so you've got to either, I guess, do some mods or some emulation or whatever, something to, like, make it work right now. But yeah, really cool game, that. And I think that's one of Peter Molyneux's games, and I think he's both famous and a bit infamous for different reasons. But a lot of his games have that sort of theme. I think he's also responsible for Dungeon Keeper, which is again like kind of a god game. And to come to think of it, I think he did Populous.
Man
which
alive.
is like,
I'm so impressed with your knowledge.
It's one of those. I think I went down a bit of a rabbit hole one day and just like watched all the Peter Molyneux like related videos one time. I was like, that's what he's been up to, and that's like the common thread. But yeah, I think he's like a big proponent of the like god game. Before he then moved into other things like Fable. But anyway, that's what game has been on my mind lately. Anyway, how about you?
So the game that's been on my mind recently is Super Mario Maker, and that is because a little while ago, Nintendo announced that they were going to shut down the servers for the game, which is a big deal because the game relies heavily on the online functionality.
Sure.
The idea is you make levels. When you beat the level, you're able to upload it, and then other people can play it. And when Nintendo announced that they were shutting down the servers, the community decided that collectively they would try and beat every single uncleared level, which at the time it was like thousands.
Wow.
And I've been following it with a lot of interest because the remaining levels got harder and harder. And we're at a point now where, as of this moment when we're recording this, there are only 4 uncleared levels left.
No. Oh my goodness.
They're just 4 insanely difficult levels, but the community are just grinding them out. You've got all these streamers who are just playing like constantly. So that's been like a fascinating situation to just watch and see it unfold.
Wow, that is really interesting. And I know it's I almost interrupted you to say controversy because I know there have been a few sort of hot topic moments surrounding that game, and not least I think one you wrote a blog about. So you're a bit displeased with Nintendo. But for those that aren't familiar with the game, just a bit of context. So essentially the Mario Maker people kind of create their own levels and submit them for people to play. Like that's a big part of the thing, isn't it? So people kind of, as much as like playing the levels is just as much of a part of the game as creating them. And am I right in thinking that you can't actually like submit your levels for other people to play until you've like beaten them yourself?
Yeah, so
is that right?
In order to upload a level, you first have to beat it. So naturally that inspires people to create like insanely hard levels and spend days and days trying to beat them just to see if they can make this, an impossible level that no one else will be able to beat.
Yeah. Right. So, but that must mean, so these remaining 4 levels, someone, like the creators, managed to beat them, so it must be possible.
Well, Chris, there is some controversy there because...
What?
There are rumours, Chris. There are rumours.
Tell me.
There's a particular level called Trimming the Herbs, and I don't know... I don't know the details, but I have heard a rumour, or at least, some speculation that some tools or cheats may have been used to get this level onto the platform.
Oh, okay.
There is a clear video. There's a video of the creator beating the level, so that suggests that it's legit, but it's just an insanely hard level.
So you're saying, so there's speculation that the creator might have like essentially scripted the movement of Mario to like defeat the level? Is that...
I mean, maybe, but according to people who know the game well, that's not a thing. That's not something that people have figured out how to do. So,
interesting.
It could well be legit, but in any case, it's an interesting one.
Wow. Okay, well, that was fascinating. Shall we dive back into our topic for the day?
Let's do it.
So there are I think we've talked about stuff that old games get right. That new games maybe get wrong or have kind of, mixed results. What's something that new games get really right that old games don't?
one thing that immediately comes to mind, and this is just a kind of niggly technical thing, but I want my games to support high resolutions and widescreen monitors. You know, it bothers me when a game is getting stretched to fill the monitor. And with a lot of modern games, typically you can select any resolution that your graphics card supports and the game will scale naturally to fit that resolution. With a lot of old games, that just wasn't the case. Some of them you could select different resolutions, but they'll only go up to a certain size. And after that, you get stretching.
Yeah. You know what? There's a game, so Diablo 2, which I'm going to go out on a limb and say is an old game. That, I had not realised this, but basically ever since I've been on a widescreen monitor, I've been stretching that game. I've been stretching it, and I've been stretching it for so long that now putting it to the correct aspect ratio is like wrong to my eyes. I'm like, I can't handle it. It's like everything looks weird. I'm just so used to it being stretched. I can't, and I can't go back. But I know I'm wrong. I'm the one that's got it stupid. I think I had to like move it to a small window because like for performance reasons one time, and I just like everything looks weird. But
that game is actually the perfect example of one that I think hasn't aged particularly well, largely because of the resolution. Like if that game scaled to fit wide screens, I'd still be playing it.
Do you think is that actually a blocker to you playing that game?
It's a factor. I'll say it's a factor.
Which kind of leads us quite nicely into remakes, you know, because we've talked about those because like a lot of the remakes that we play. I mean, I only really play a handful of remakes, but you know, they address a lot of the things you just said. So like screen resolutions, and there's a lot of quality of life stuff. You know, I couldn't necessarily like bullet point it out. Maybe you could, but yeah, it's just kind of quality of life things, which is nice to have. That, you know, old games didn't always do very well, or maybe couldn't, you know, at the time. Resolutions there is a big thing, but you know, there's challenges there because, you know, depending on the source material, you know, maybe basically artwork needs recreating because, you know, the actual original artwork is only so big, and so, you know, even if you did bigger resolutions, you know, or I don't know, you might kind of be. You can't make it out because things are too small or whatever, and you know, certainly there are games which I actually play in lower like even remakes where I play them in lower resolutions than my screen because there are some items in there where I want them to be a certain size, and I can't dictate that in any other way other than the resolution.
Can you give me an example?
Well, Knights and Merchants is my key example. I play that at like 1370. Whatever it is, yeah. It's a widescreen aspect, but it's smaller because otherwise the menu items are all like too small, man. Like and the mini map, which is critical to like seeing, you know, what your enemies are up to, is way smaller. And so I actually have that at a larger resolution.
So what I will say on that is that a lot of games that offer high resolution support, they'll also offer a menu scaling option, which is important, I think. Otherwise, like you say, you have the problem where, you know, the menus just become so small that they're hard to see or hard to interact with.
Yeah.
Minecraft is a good example. You can run that in any resolution, and you can choose how you want the GUI to scale. Okay,
nice. So what other examples, like other like remakes that I've played? I mean, the Age of Empires is certainly one that I've spent some time in. Most Age of Empires 2, but I think recent news is that the original Age of Empires is also being released currently, or has just been released. It's pretty current news, I think. And
what
I think
number is that now?
What do you mean?
Did you say New Age of Empires?
No. Well, so original Age of Empires has been remade.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So because I think they did 2 before that, and also like Age of Mythology maybe. But anyway, yeah. So like those things, the artwork I think is was maybe redone and it looks but looks really faithful. But the No Clip did quite a nice little documentary on it, and like that whole balance of kind of keeping things faithful versus kind of modern practicalities and modern touches that make lives better. And I think what they generally went on the vibe of it feeling right, as opposed to it like looking 100% right. Like if you look critically, A/B it, and it's like, oh, that's wrong. This is wrong. This is different. But like, if you've not like been playing original Age of Empires for a little bit, and then you just play their remake, it's like everything just feels right.
So would you say the Age of Empires remake, what's it called? Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition or something? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Would you say that is a remake that's been done well? That's a good example?
I absolutely would. And there are different approaches to remakes, and I'm not necessarily sure if I have like a strong steer on what's right, but yeah, to that, for me, I'm not a die-hard Age of Empires fan, but I've certainly played, spent a lot of hours in those games. Coming to that, I didn't notice it being anything being wrong. It just felt like the game that I remembered. There are actually a few features they added which they felt like really natural as part of the game, but they were almost like, I didn't remember that. And it's because it's actually a new feature.
Oh, like what?
So auto scouting apparently was like a big hoo-ha in the community. There was like, we're not sure, because you couldn't do that in the original game. There was no auto scouting. It's such a useful feature, and they basically settled on auto scouting is a really great feature. If you're a pro, you're actually not going to use it, so it's because there's better ways to scout if you're really on it and controlling him bespoke. And you've got the headspace to do that and do your town and all the stuff. But for players that are not quite so advanced, it's a great feature.
Well, I've not actually seen that feature before, and it sounds like something that I could see being marketed as a quality of life feature.
Yeah. But
there's an interesting question there of when does a quality of life feature actually detrimentally affect the game, in terms of taking skill away from the player, because to some people being able to scout while building your town, that's that requires skill, that's you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely. It's interesting, I think, but I think they made their decision exactly based on what you said, but gone maybe the other way. They've been it requires a certain level of skill. So actually, it requires a certain level of skill to do it better than the auto one.
Interesting.
So it's kind of if you're a really good player, then actually this doesn't impact you because you're not going to use it anyway.
Okay.
But if you're a slightly lower skilled player, then it's kind of a nice quality of life thing that's going to just make your life a bit nicer and improve your experience a bit. But it's also not like cheating, because it's not so excellent that So I think I agree with it, and as a player I enjoy it. And just generally the feel of that game is just it just feels like I'm playing the original game, except it works on new operating systems and there's good resolutions and all the rest of it. So I think that's done well. The Knights and Merchants one is obviously one I play, but it's going to be less familiar to most listeners. But another one would be that I'm aware of is the Abe's Odyssey, the first Abe's Odyssey game. Abe's Odyssey Oddworld was the original, the first in that series, and they remade it as Abe's. I forget the exact title, but it's Abe's Odyssey. New and Tasty is the name of the remake, and it is a frame for frame, screen for screen kind of recreation essentially, but with modern it's slightly modernized graphics, and the look of it is a little bit different, but it kind of retains the spirit of the whole thing. I've not played that, but I've played its successor, which is Soulstorm, which is a great game and absolutely kind of has the charm and the kind of just the like feel and vibe of that series, but is absolutely a modern game in its own right, and kind of would sit alongside any other kind of modern platformer action games, and and feel at home. Are there any other sort of remakes that you play and that you have sort of comment on, or that you think that do it really well, or some that maybe don't do so well?
Yeah, definitely. I've got a lot to say about remakes, but first, I just wanted to touch on something. Have you ever heard of a demake?
No. Although I'm sort of interpreting, is it just like turning it into a much more basic kind of old school looking game? What's the thing?
Yeah, essentially. So because some people have such nostalgia towards old games, there's been a bit of a trend of people demaking modern games to make them look like they came from the PS1 era.
Oh, wow.
And the reason I wanted to touch on this was because I think it ties into what we were saying just earlier about quality of life, and when is a quality of life feature acceptable and when does it actually detract from the gameplay. And I think there was a demake of, I think it was Bloodborne, where I was watching the developer talk about the process, and one of the things that they were keen to include was that when you go up to a door, rather than the key being automatically used in the door, you actually have to open up your inventory, find the key, and manually use it on the door.
Right.
And arguably, having the ability to just automatically open a door if you have the key in your inventory, you could say, oh, that's a quality of life feature. But this developer was arguing that actually it's part of the charm of old games that you have to go through the motions of, getting the key out of your inventory. And I can't remember exactly what they said, but I did find myself agreeing.
There's certainly there's something there, isn't there? And like, I wouldn't like to put any sort of blanket statement on it, but yeah, sometimes there is like, I mean, that's the game. That is the like the gaming equivalent of like reaching into your pocket and getting the key, right?
Yeah.
And like, maybe it feels a bit clunky, and in some contexts, you don't want it, but I think there are sometimes making that stuff too easy and not having to like really do anything to like make the door open or interact with the thing kind of trivializes the whole thing, and like makes it feel a bit like it doesn't matter, like why did I bother? Or like or like what, or kind of makes keys or whatever the thing is, just feel a bit less meaningful. I think there is that risk anyway, and it feels less meaningful because it's just, oh well, I picked it up from someplace and now I just I walk a few meters away from the door, it just kind of magically opens because I'm by it, and
yeah. But anyway, moving on to remakes, I think that Age of Empires 2 is a great example, and I mentioned that I think the name of that game is the Definitive Edition. And I feel like that's really important, actually, that when a game is remade, the remake should become the Definitive Edition. And the problem with a lot of remakes is that they sometimes fall short of what they should be and what the fans were expecting. And so the fans just fall back on the original game because perhaps there were some features that weren't developed properly in the remake or whatever it is. One example that comes to mind is with Heroes 3. There was an HD edition, but actually all the mods, there was a huge modding scene and all the mods only supported the original game. So the remake doesn't become the Definitive Edition because, well, if suddenly, if you're playing the remake, you can't use your mods. So you're in this annoying, like, in-between state where it's like, oh, I want the improved graphics, but I then can't use my mods.
That was exactly the example that came to my mind when you started saying that. It's just, it felt like such a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
And maybe, I don't know the ins and outs of, like, the legalities of it all. Maybe there were some limitations that Ubisoft had, so they couldn't go down that route. But it just seems like, honestly, if that wasn't an option, almost just don't bother. Like, because like there's, as you say, there's such a community even now, you know, and there's new content that's being made that works with the HD, you know, that whole package, the fan made package. It's just like, there's no way people are going to walk away from that. Unless you wrap, you know, your remake kind of wraps that in, which it didn't. It absolutely failed at that. More so, for me, you know, I might have forgiven it that and like played it, you know, I'll play it, you know, if I'm just playing the base game content, I'll play it in the in the Ubisoft official remake, and then when I'm doing, you know, the mod stuff, then I'll do that in the HD fan made thing. But even their remake didn't have like the team balancing and stuff that came with like the, you know, the original like expansions and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, so I was like, I can't even, with that knowledge, I was like, I can't actually bring myself to play it, because it's like, I know that it's like, I get, to my mind, is a slightly broken game, you know, which, you know, the developers, you know, essentially admitted it was slightly broken by patching it and rebalancing some of those teams.
Yeah.
So it's like, so I just couldn't even bring myself to play it. I barely played it. And it's so frustrating.
It's frustrating, isn't it? When it's like they're taunting you. It's like they're taunting you with this nice new edition, which is actually just falls down at the first
Come here,
hurdle.
little gamer. Come here. And it's like, you know, it's like the whole, like, the cartoon thing, you know, it's like, I don't know, it's like, you know, some, like, lovely present on a string, or, you know, like, and then, like, they pull it away. It's like, no, you can't have it.
Yeah.
You know, or it's like something, you know what, it's actually reminding me of a prank that we never pulled at university, but a friend of mine put beer in a freezer, and if you've ever done that and forgotten about it, you know where this is going. You know, if you open it up after it's been in the freezer and it hasn't actually frozen, because I guess beer doesn't freeze quite in the same way, you know, and it just spews everywhere, just like just endlessly, until your whole kitchen is just like beer froth. And what I always thought would be like a hilarious prank would be to like dangle, you know, a 6-pack that's been frozen, and like dangle it to the kitchen downstairs, you know, like the next floor down, and like, you know, it's probably wishful thinking, but I'm just like, hey, like, desperate students, like, if you saw like a 6-pack, you know, and just dangling there, and you have it for free, you'd have it, wouldn't you? I mean, I'd have it.
Reminds me of like Crab and Goyle in the Harry Potter films. When there's like the floating cupcakes.
Oh, I've got an armful of cakes, but yeah, I'll have the floating cake. Yeah, so I just like the screaming that would then ensue. Just anyway, yeah, it's like that. That's what remakes that fall short are.
Yes, and
like
I can give you a bunch more just off the top of my head.
Could you?
Firstly, Skyrim. I don't know why they felt they needed to release another edition of Skyrim, like only a few years later, but this legendary edition or whatever that just broke compatibility with all the mods. So you've just got this completely divided, like fragmented community.
Wow.
Anno 1602, one of my all-time favourite games, and they released an HD edition, but it was just full of bugs and just features that they clearly hadn't tested.
Yeah.
I bought the game like a few months probably after release because I hadn't heard about it. So I was a little bit late to the party, and I was quick to like raise all these bug reports in the Ubisoft forums. But by then, all the developers had moved on. No one was working on the game, so it's just left in this buggy state. So that was super frustrating. And final example that comes to mind, Diablo 2 Resurrected. I was so gutted because I was really looking forward to that game. I'd pre-ordered it, and then they announced that they were ripping out... They weren't including support for TCP IP play. Like, you couldn't play unless you were on the battle.net servers. You couldn't just host your own games with friends or, you know, have a LAN party. Yeah. Which was a huge part of the draw of the game for me, because as you know, we used to play that game using that particular networking mode all the time, and I didn't want to be reliant on Battle.net servers.
Yeah, no, that was absolutely killer. I'm actually going to add one to the list, which might be able to add more context and frustration than me, which is Ratchet and Clank. So they did the. You're gonna have to correct me, but I think they did like an HD version or something that was like on PS3 and presumably some other platforms. And that was I've played that. I played the first game of the trilogy they released and a bit of the second one, and that was just excellent. Now my understanding is they've done another remake of the first Ratchet and Clank game, but have like changed it quite a bit and replaced elements of it. And I think also, like, critically, have like binned the soundtrack and like put another soundtrack in that's just way more generic and less, less inspired, shall we say?
Are you talking about the Ratchet and Clank game on PS5?
I think so. Yes.
See, that's an interesting one because I wouldn't call that a remake. I would say that's basically like a completely new game that they've just branded as Ratchet and Clank, much like with Doom 2016. It's just called Doom, but it's okay. You wouldn't call it a remake of original Doom.
That's interesting. I thought that there were like whole levels that were basically kind of very similar or like very based on the original, but
I'm not too sure. I haven't played it myself because I don't have a PS5, and also I feel like the Ratchet and Clank games have really gone downhill.
Yeah, as did the Spyro games, which was
But
anyway,
the Spyro remake and the Ratchet and Clank HD collection on PS3 that you mentioned, both brilliant,
stellar, absolutely. And I've not played the. That's not true. I played like half an hour of the Crash Bandicoot remake, and that was, from what I played, that was a lot of fun and just felt pretty right, and I know it's been really well received. So I think that was another good example of a remake done really well. So talking about remakes, what is an old game that you would most like to be remade today? You've touched on Rival Realms, and I'll give you a few sentences on that if you want, but I think that might be a bit of a cheat, so you should see if you can wrangle another one.
Yeah, okay, so I've got to just mention Rival Realms because I am remaking that because I so badly want to play it again. I would say Anno 1602 if it was done well. I mean, it has been remade, but it was so bad that I want it done properly.
Wow. Yeah, that's such a shame, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think I would, you mentioned it earlier. I think I would really enjoy a remake of Star Wars 1: The Phantom Menace, just to make it. Yeah, I think just to make it easy to play, really. Just like I wouldn't even like necessarily need much done to it. I just like just so I don't have to think about compatibility or any of the nonsense that goes with playing an old game. I'd just like it to be easy to play now.
That game is a good example, I think, of an old game that's just so wacky in a way that you wouldn't find nowadays.
Do you think?
I think old games were just a lot less restricted by publishers and whatnot, and so they would just sometimes be completely insane and get away with it.
Bit braver, maybe.
Yeah.
I wonder if that still exists. I don't know. Like in indie games now, such big budgets go into games these days. That was not the case back then. Like a game would be made by one person, 4 people. Small companies would make games. Like even Diablo 2, which is what, 2002, I'm roughly guessing there. That was like, it was mostly made by Blizzard North, which I think was a small group of like 5 or 8 people. Like it was not many people. And that was like, that's a huge game back then. And it's, and has obviously got its own sort of legacy and history now. Games just didn't take the amount of people that it takes to make a game now, for the most part. I think the indie market is different. Like small groups will make that, or even single people, such as yourself. With Abacus. But yeah, I guess when you're a smaller group of people, you get to call the shots a bit more. And maybe, you know, if it is a like, maybe if it's a side hustle, then you can kind of afford to take some risks. And, you know, if the project doesn't kind of pay off big time, well, we did it in our spare time and it was a hobby, so that's fine. But no, I think you're right. You know, it's nice when games do take a risk and they are wacky. I actually watched an interview of one of the developers for that game.
Really?
And it was really interesting. Like, he was saying how like they were only given like certain bits of the script, you know, and that they were kind of like they were given the script quite late on, and they'd already like gone to town. I guess they got like they went to set once or twice, and so they were like included in some bits of the development of the film. But, you know, the whole idea was that basically the game was going to come out pretty much, you know, once on the release of the film.
Yeah.
So you're kind of getting, you know, you're getting these things kind of piecemeal. And, for example, like there's a whole level on the Gungan city, right? And one of his comments is like, oh, you know, if we'd known that was kind of a much smaller part of the film at the time, like we wouldn't have done like a whole level on it.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting because, like, I quite like that there's a whole level in it because it is quite a short piece in the film, and it felt like a kind of more of a deep dive into that world that you don't get in the film.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to hear that was basically a result of like bad communication of like of like the script and what the content was. And then similarly, Panaka as well. So Captain Panaka is like a character that you can play in the game, and he has one, maybe even two levels where you're like Captain Panaka of like a 9-level game or something. You know, there's like not many levels, and again, he is a tertiary character in the film. You know, like he gets a few lines, he's there, but like it's not like he's one of the Jedi. But that is the group of people that he's been placed in. He's been placed in the set, you know, playable characters. Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon Jinn, then you've got Panaka, and then what? Like
Amidala.
Maybe what? Queen Amidala. Now she's a legitimate character, you know. So yeah, again, just kind of interesting. I think the last thing that I'll say that from that interview, they also mentioned the kind of sandboxy thing, the kind of slightly sandboxy nature of some of those
Mos Espa.
Of that level, and. I think they kind of said that you know they liked it. They liked that was part of that. But if they were to revisit it, maybe they would. You know, that felt like maybe not a misstep, but yeah, a bit like not quite the right vibe, maybe. But you know, interestingly, I saw this the other day. Just like it was like basically like a video clickbait thumbnail, but apparently 9 separate Star Wars games were like commissioned and released for Star Wars Episode 1. 9 set like different developers, just like all just, you know, there was podcasts. Do you remember like there was what they called pod racing? There was like a pod racing game, which I remember.
Oh yeah.
And I also had like Star Wars like Power Battles, I think is what it was called.
Oh yeah, which was like on the fighting game.
Yeah, well, it was kind of no, you know, it was kind of similar to Star Wars Episode 1 in that it was kind of, you know, it was kind of adventure, slice people up with your lightsaber type vibe, but it was kind of a bit more aerial shot.
Oh, okay.
So it was kind of a bit less kind of close and personal. But anyway, yeah, that movie tie-ins is a whole kind of thing, but yeah, I just thought it was interesting. Like some of the like excitement and variety in those games is not necessarily, like down to the factors you might think. Also, playing Phoenix Rising recently, which has like a whole load of puzzle solving in it, it just made me... There are some things in games which are just like enduring. You know, they will just always be there. And they're like, you know, and I think this is quite a nice little tie into kind of our topic of like, you know, are old games as fun as we remember them being? Some of the like foundational thing about games, you know, are in those old games, and we still see them play out again and again today in new games. And the one that made me think, and I hadn't thought about Star Wars, you know, Phantom Menace. I hadn't thought about that game for quite a while. And then I was pushing, because it was these puzzles where you're pushing big blocks around. You're pushing big blocks around to like go on switch, that then opened the thing or changed the behavior of something that then means you can push another block, or it's that sort of puzzle. And I was, after doing these puzzles, loads, I must have done like 20, 30 of these puzzles, and just one time it just hit me. I was like, this exact puzzle basically is in Star Wars Episode 1 Phantom Menace. Pushing blocks is like, there are those puzzles. There's a bunch of those puzzles in that game. I was just like, nothing's changed. This is like 20 years on, nothing's changed. We're still pushing blocks around in our adventure games.
Well, I think that just about brings us to the end of episode 2 of Knee Deep in the Pod. Once again, I'm Dan.
I'm Chris.
And thanks so much for listening. And if you made it this far, maybe just drop us a comment. Tell us, what remakes have you really enjoyed? Or not enjoyed?
Love that. And we'll be making more of these episodes as we go along. So if there's any sort of content or ideas or questions you have for us, then drop them in the comments, and maybe you'll find us touching on those in the coming episodes.
Yep, and if you have any questions, you can send us a fax.
On 0800 1971. See you later.